What do you think young Daniel would have made of this when he came down from Canada?
Young Daniel was a cocky, confident young kid who would have said, "I told you so."
Now, the one question that we're going to explore a little bit more is about how you learn to read people. That's what you do for a living. What tells am I giving off to you, Dan?
Well, so far you have this energy that is engaged and you actually want to listen to what I'm saying and you're interested. Your body posture, all those types of things tell me that this is going to be a good interview because you seem to know what you're talking about.
I'll take that compliment.
Yeah, there you go. So when you're looking for a read at poker table, it's a little bit different than in life. But at the poker table, really what you're doing is you're paying attention and looking for anything that's outside the norm, right? And then you take the data point and say, okay, he was, let's use gum chewing, for example.
Yeah.
Guy's chewing gum, makes a big bet, stops chewing. Okay, I want to see that hand. If he was bluffing, right, I'm going to keep watching. Next, like an hour later, he's chewing gum, keeps on chewing. Okay, well, this time he had it. So now I've got in my database a very small sample of like, this guy, maybe when he stops chewing gum, that means he's weak. That's a very obvious example, right? But there's subtle things like posture, what your eyes do, where you look, your breathing tendencies, even the way that you put your chips in the pot. We're looking for every little angle and little different thing. When people see the flop and they like what they see, subconsciously, they don't even know they do this. The first thing they do, they go like that. They look at the chips. Because subconsciously they say, ooh, I like this. I need to bet chips. So they're, preemptively looking. So when you see that, beware, because that means that they're coming. Yeah. My outward persona is a laughing hyena, because I'm always just giggly laugh, like I don't know what's going on and stuff like that. But underneath, it's really a chameleon who's very adaptable and always able to change based on, perception, right? I think the most important skill set is self-awareness, right? Understand how people perceive you, and then you can take advantage of them in that regard.
How do you want people to feel when you come to the table?
So that's a great question. And I look at, the contrast to me is Phil Ivey, okay? Phil Ivey is very Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan-esque, intense. He wants everybody uncomfortable, tense, and, afraid, right? I go the opposite way. I want people casual, I want people laughing, I want people to put their guard down. I want them to feel safe and comfy. I'll often, let's say I'm in a hand against you, and, I'm making a decision, I'll often start talking to the dealer and be like, what did I do to myself? I'm so stupid. Why did I even think about that? But really, I'm looking at you the entire time while you giggle and laugh because you don't feel like I'm looking at you. I'm not one of those that's super intense and stares people down like this, like some. I want people to be disarmed, right? And then use some charm in order to beat them so that when they leave, they laugh and they giggle and they go, hey, what happened to all my chips?
That amount of intense attention to the other people around the table, the environment, the energy, that seems to take up an awful lot of cognitive resource to then be able to play effectively. Yeah. So what do you do to put yourself in the best place to do that?
So I've learned over 30 years of playing poker that it is literally impossible for you to be at 100% the entire way through. So you have to pick and choose when it's most important to have what I told my wife, I call it hyper-focus, right? Okay. And for me, if I'm sitting down at a table with a player I've never seen before and I don't know them, hyper-focus, because I need to get an idea of what they're like and what they play like.
So then what do you do to go and replenish that focus bank?
Really the best and only way to replenish the focus bank is sleep. I do think meditation helps as well, and it has varying effects for different people. For some people, it just doesn't do much. Yep. For me, I do a red light LED bed. I have one here in the house.
So how long would you typically spend on this?
40 minutes. So then this thing here, it's like this for your face. Right. But you would just put this down and put it directly right over your face, and you'd have to wear the goggles and things like that. Okay. I'll lay on this and I'll use it as an opportunity to meditate too. Okay. So kill two birds with one stone. It's funny because meditation is supposed to be about just relax and let go, but when I do it in here, I feel at least productive about it. So because I feel what am I just doing here? I'm just sitting here.
There's a British journalist called Nick Hornby that says you can judge somebody by their record collection and their book collection.
Oh boy. I don't know about that. It's a very weird one.
Oh, I love this Tim Ferriss one.
Yeah, I'm in that one.
Tribe of Mentors. Are you in it?
Yeah. Yep, that's me.
To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing.
Yeah.
So what's the wisdom that you share with Tim Ferriss in that then?
That's one of my favorite quotes, actually, because it's very easy to live a life where you don't rock the boat, Yeah. But that's not living to me. I'm totally fine with speaking my mind, being true to myself, and understanding that as a result, some people will not like you. And that's not something I see as a detriment. That's just if everybody loves you, that means they don't really care.
What would you say is the big difference between turning up for the World Series today?
Well, the game evolves, the game changes, everything changes in terms of with AI and solvers and a new breed of poker player. I'd say probably the biggest difference is, 20, 30 years ago, if I didn't know who you were, chances are you weren't very good, because where would you have practiced? Today, people play online. They play on GG Poker, and they get a lot of hands in playing online poker. So sometimes I might sit with a guy I've never seen before, but he's an expert,
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest change is sort of like now there are some people who, can get to like a very high level without having to play, daily against me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's remarkable about you, Daniel, that you've adapted to those changes. And I think there's some lessons you can teach our audience around how do you adapt to an industry that's changing around you.
I think two things. First and foremost, self-awareness, right? Again, I've used that before, but the reason for that is you have to be aware of like, you're good, right? But are you better than these guys right now? And if not, you have to go with number two, which is humility, which is to say, okay, you know what, I need to go back in the lab. And for myself, for example, I hired 2 guys to coach me on using the software because I'm not a computer guy. I don't even know how to turn this stuff on. So I wanted to understand what the young kids were learning. Early on in my career, when I was a young up-and-comer, I remember sitting with the guys who were at the top at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm better than you now, but you're complacent. You're like, oh, I've reached the pinnacle. The day you think you've reached the top is the exact moment in poker where you start to be surpassed by others, when you stop working.
That reminds me of a quote from a book that I wrote many years ago. I wrote a book on a boxer called Marvin Hagler, who was a world super middleweight champion. And he had this great quote that he said, it's hard to get up and run when you're wearing silk pajamas.
That's my favorite. I use that all the time.
Is it?
Oh my God, it's one of my favorite quotes. I use it all the time.
So how do you get up and run when you're wearing silk pajamas? You've achieved a level of fame and prestige and wealth that means that you don't have to employ coaches, you don't have to learn new technologies, you don't have to take on all these up and coming challenges if you don't want to. So what does get you up and run?
So one of the things that I'm unique in is I've always been easily self-motivated. Like I always find new challenges, and I enjoy, like part of what makes life enjoyable for me is goal setting, finding new ways in which I want to like prove people wrong. I kind of love haters in a way, because haters fuel me. For like 30 years, I keep hearing about, oh, he's washed up, he can't win no more. I'm like, oh yeah, watch this, And so that's sort of something that's always driven me. But also the other thing I do too is I cut back. I make sure now that I'm only playing when I really feel like it, when I want to. Because if I don't, like last year I had not a great year, partly because I was playing too much and just kind of going through the motions where I didn't care enough.
Okay.
So the breaks in between are super crucial. I'll play 7 weeks. I'm not going to play a hand of poker in the next 6-7 weeks, so that I'm just fresh and ready and can't wait to go play.
Okay. You spoke about the haters, that you actually love them.
Mm.
Explain more on that.
I find that whenever I'm doubted, it brings out the best in me. Some people crumble under pressure or, criticism. I'm the opposite. I like it. I'm like, okay, bring it on. I kind of enjoy that. It motivates me to just be a better version of myself, especially if there's any points in my career I'm like, you know what, they're kind of right. I need to work harder. I need to be better because these guys are, learning things that I haven't. And the more you see the same thing, the more apt you are to be like, make better decisions. So I look at mistakes. I'm excited about mistakes.
Okay.
Because mistakes are an opportunity. Whenever you have like a breakdown, that's an opportunity for a breakthrough where I'm like, aha, okay, so this is what I can do here in this spot. We figured it out. So now the next time I'm approached with a similar situation, I have like new tools that I can use that, sort of we call it plugging leaks, if you will.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've developed enough wisdom to know, all right, this new thing that I'm doing has really been effective. The main driver of like learning usually comes from when things aren't going well. I find that's true of a lot of things, right? When things are going well, you're having success, there's not a lot it doesn't feel all that, important to work on stuff because you're already there, you're doing great. When things turn for you and they're not working as well, that's when you want to like look at the adjustments necessary.
Who's kryptonite for you though on the poker table? Which personality type presents you with the biggest difficulties?
I'd say